Good morning, friends. I'm Tina Gadini.
And I'm Justin Johnson.
We want to welcome you to Fellowship of Faith.
We're back.
We're so glad you're here. Were you gone last week?
I was.
Oh.
I was in St. Louis for the weekend.
Okay. I didn't go online or watch. I wanted to, and then I'm like, oh, it's Saturday night. So, glad you're back, Justin.
Thank you. Glad you're back, Tina. Thank you
Thank
to
you.
Kyle and Maya for filling in again. Got like an
I
A
gotta
and a
watch
B
it
team
because
here.
that's got to be fun.
Yep. Good. They once again are pining for their own show, so we'll see. Sorry, but we're the real
We're
duo
the real
here.
deal.
Sorry. Thank you for joining us today, guys. We are so happy to have you here. Today is the final week for the mini series on James.
Okay.
Right? Yep.
You're looking at me like I know.
Yep. I'm pretty sure this is it. Todd is leading
Okay.
with us today, and we have a special. No, you go.
The Bluesberries.
Yes, that's what I was going to say too. The Bluesberries.
Is that the Bluesberries? That's
I
right,
believe
not
so,
the Blues
yes.
Brothers. Bluesberries.
Once again, you're looking at me like I know, but
Okay.
I read it briefly. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it's a blues.
So they just walked in.
That is Garrett's band.
Yes.
He does gigs around the area.
Yes, and like 2 weeks ago I was here, and they came in, and I don't know if they were practicing for today or if they were just using the space to practice. I don't know. They're so good. I'm so excited.
Yeah, this is very
I didn't
exciting.
hear them warm up today.
A little. Okay. Well, that's good because now it's going to be a surprise for both of us because I also.
So excited. And Mike Nigros playing the guitar, the saxophone.
If you guys have never heard him play the saxophone during worship set, it is awesome. So we're extremely excited to have him back with us on stage. So it's going to be a very exciting and packed day full of things. We have
things.
It looks like we have a speaker from Habitat for Humanity today for during the
I ran
announcement
into her in the
segment.
bathroom.
Oh,
and like,
nice.
I thought she was. I didn't run into her actually, but I
Bowled her over.
Yeah. And,
Welcome to Fellowship of Faith.
I thought she was with the band, so I said hello, and she had a name tag on, which I thought that's an odd choice. Like I'm with the band or something, and then she said she's with Habitat for Humanity. I'm like, that
Isn't
makes
she wearing
sense.
a Habitat for Humanity shirt?
I didn't notice that. I just noticed the name
I'm pretty
tag.
sure she is. But anyways, we have someone speaking about that. We've done a couple, I think 2 or 3 or something like that, Habitat for Humanity projects around the area. A couple from our church, Steve Frames and his wife, lead that up. So we're going to dive into that a little bit today. So that's exciting.
Cool.
Yes.
Did you go to church in St. Louis?
No.
No.
There's no church like here.
There's
I just
not.
tune in online.
So you guys know that I was in Spain for a month, right? And when I was in Spain, I went to a lot of Catholic mass, and it was rough. And so there's 2 days, and there's just Spain is Catholic. There is no other option,
Right, yeah.
except for when you're in like the bigger cities.
Yep.
And then there's other options. And so I went to a couple evangelical churches. I called them Protestants, and that's not what we call ourselves. We're evangelical. Okay, whatever.
Whatever you say.
And it was interesting when I was in Spain going to these other Protestant evangelical churches. The entire time I'm looking for connection, looking for similarities. And last week, Dave and I Dave was off. My husband is a pastor. He was off. And so we went to a church up in Richmond. And I found myself like, okay, I'm at another church, and I'm like, they don't do that as well as Fellowship of Faith. Oh, they don't do that as good as we did. And it's all different. And I had a moment where I'm like, Tina, how awful. Stop looking for ways that you're separate. Think more about when you were in Spain. And like, what do we have in common?
Yep.
And I was so glad. Like, during the service, I was able to make that flip.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
That's something that I need to get in the swing of things as well, like knowing that, hey, we don't have to do everything the same. We're all coming together to worship the same God, and we are all walking down this journey together in one way, shape, or form. But my caveat here, we have a great online community, and our services portray so well online now that even when I'm not here.
What's our time? Okay. One of the things that I want to do, I would love to get Fellowship of Faith, the online service, into jails.
Ooh,
wouldn't that be like a great ministry?
Cool.
So if anybody's interested in that, I know like Steve Wells is interested in
we can talk
prison
to him.
ministry. So if you guys online are interested in getting something like that and helping out with it, I don't know what all it entails. It might just be like, hey, we're broadcasting. It might be like, hey, we have somebody there in person. Wouldn't that be cool?
I was a criminal justice major in college, so I took a lot of prison tours around the Southern Illinois area, and they have a section off where there's church service, and it's not just Christian. There's Catholic, there's Lutheran, there's
but like a person comes in.
Judaism, there's Islam, all of it.
Okay.
Every religion you can think of, they have meetings during that time. So we can probably theoretically get something worked in. So
I'm excited to do something like that.
Dang, I really want to talk about this more, but we only have 15 seconds.
Okay,
so.
do we have communion today?
No communion today.
Okay, so we're good that way.
No, yep. No
we got
communion.
good music. Get on your feet, guys. I'm so
Get
excited.
Enjoy the service, and we'll talk to you after.
We'll see you at the end.
All right, bye.
Wow, it's hard to follow that. So I'm not. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming out here on a beautiful day in the summertime. We really appreciate you being here. And if you could, take out your phones and just text here, because we want to know kind of, where you're at. And if you have a prayer request or want us to pray for you, I'm part of the elder team, and we take all these prayers and we spend hours praying over them, and just know that we're here for you, and your prayers just don't go out into the ether somewhere, but they're actually making connections with people that are on their knees praying for you. So just type here, and then the next one, prayer, at the 855-465-2720. The next announcement is about ways to give. And last week I got some clarification, and I apologize for the miscommunication, but anyone who dropped their wallet in the altar plate because of that sign up there, you can come and collect it afterwards. But there's no money left in it, just the wallet. So anyways, there's 5 ways to give. You can give in cash, and there's buckets at the exits. You can email. You can, log on your 386 computer and send in through that way, through a computer giving. Cell phones, please, we don't need cell phones in the buckets. You can actually cell phone it in. And again, I'm still confused about that bank. Might have to work on it. It looks more like a Supreme Court or something, but. So we're not judging, though, so just, you can make bank deposits. So anyways, feel free. I view the giving portion as a sign of worship. It's part of the worship experience, and it should be given freely without any type of, feeling pressure. So, whatever you feel, to do or led to do that. And for anyone of you as guests here, there's no obligation, okay? This is for the people that kind of call Fellowship of Faith home. This is directed at you. So we have, like last week, we have kind of somebody coming up to really talk about how we put action into our faith. And so I'm going to introduce Steve, and he's going to bring up Allison from Habitat for Humanity. So let's give him a round of applause.
Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Promise. If you haven't met me already, I am your Habitat for Humanity contact here at FOF. My job primarily is to get help coordinating with the builds that we're going to be doing with Habitat for Humanity this summer. I personally have found the time working with the group very enjoyable. From a standpoint of working with Habitat for Humanity, if you haven't ever been part of a build, it's really cool. You get to go to a site, you get to help somebody build their future home. You get to learn some tricks and tips on how to build a house, so if you've never done that, you don't really need a lot of expertise in anything. They'll teach you how to do it. So since I have such a passion for it, and Habitat is considerably larger than just building a house, we thought it would be great to have the group come here. Allison DeBurn and Dorian Hare are here. You probably saw the table up front. They're going to explain the process of what Habitat is for a homeowner, and also the other areas that they cover in the community. It's a great organization. We are planning on doing a build here starting in April. We're going to get it from the ground up, so it's going to be really awesome. So I'm hoping that you join us in that future endeavor, but also look into Habitat as an organization in general. So here, I give you Allison.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everybody, for having us today. As Steve said, he is an advocate, and the home builds are what really drives him and his passion. But just going out there, he had an opportunity to learn more about how the organization works, how people qualify, and what other aspects we have, and thought that would be valuable. And it is, because knowledge is power. And there's a lot of myths and stigmas about Habitat. that people, don't know past. So we're happy to be here. Again, Dorian is our volunteer coordinator and does we all wear a lot of hats because we work in a nonprofit, so you can imagine probably around here is similar, and does a lot of marketing and things. We're both part of the community outreach team for the local Habitat for Humanity affiliate here in McHenry County. A lot of what we do is working to educate, support families, volunteers, and the community at large about our home ownership program. We also have a critical home repair program that helps those who own their homes and have repairs that they need for accessibility or to be able to continue to live in their homes, and we get grant funding for that. We have our restores in McHenry and Woodstock, which are resale shops open to the public, and we accept donations and shopping there, and all those proceeds go back into our build and what we do. So I know there are lots of people we meet who don't want to lift a hammer, but they love to shop, and we love that. So just to be clear, there are so many ways, and we'll show some here coming up, of ways that you can be involved, ways that you can support. We're really advocates for affordable housing in our community, especially. It's defined by the Housing Urban Development, by HUD, spending no more than 30% of your gross income on your housing costs. In Illinois, 1 in 7 households are spending over half of their income. So it's not just a need for some people in some situations, and we're all probably in a position where we're, putting out a hefty amount out there. So it's something that goes beyond just Habitat's mission, but something that really should be looked at community-wide. There's an estimated shortage of rental and for sale homes of over 120,000 in McHenry County. So you think about the underproduction of housing and the shortage of entry-level homes especially, that really drives up the unaffordability, not to mention what we've seen in the past few years with what the market's done. Average monthly rent or mortgage payment in McHenry County is between $1,700 and $2,500 a month. So you would need to make $68,000 to $100,000 a year to be at 30%, for that to be 30% of your income. And certainly that is a doable thing for some, but we want people to be able to work in our county and also be able to live in our county. So looking at ways to fill that gap. We see the gap between the existing housing market and the need and the demand for affordable housing. And part of how we work to, improve that is partnering with families here in McHenry County to build and purchase decent, safe, and affordable homes. Their mortgage is at no more than 30% of their gross income. We do that and keep it affordable for us to be able to do so through skilled and unskilled, as Steve said, volunteers. So there's absolutely no requirement to be involved with us and have any prior knowledge, especially on the build site. And they contribute their time to construction. We receive donations and discounts from local builders, community organizations, and partnerships there for construction materials, and donations even to the restore that we resell. We get things from Costco, we get things from Wayfair, even on a larger national scale, and from local Ace Hardware and True Value and things so new items that come to our store that are donated that get resold along with donations of pre-used items. And we really employ thoughtful, cost-efficient home designs and offer those affordable mortgage options with low interest rates and down payment assistance grants. So we utilize a lot of grants that exist to help our homeowners be able to, get that 30% mortgage and keep it affordable for them. Next slide, please. There's eligibility criteria for our home ownership program, and that's kind of that stigma that we're not giving houses away. We like to say we're a hand up, not a hand out, but it is truly, qualifying applicant is somebody that can afford to pay a mortgage. They're purchasing with us this home through a bank, so they are getting a mortgage. They are going into this fully as a homeowner. The first criteria for that we look at is a need for housing. So we're really looking, because our program's designed to assist families who are in need of safe and decent housing, and so we look at overcrowding, inadequate facilities in their homes or unsafe environments, and really what they're paying for housing. So not only are they over that 30%, but typically they're over the 50%, and paying so much for housing that they're unable to put any money, time, or effort into improving education, transportation, medical bills, the things that are part of our daily lives and can really be barriers and burdens to making improvements. The second criteria we look at too is a willingness to partner. Be a positive representative here in the community and to have a true partnership with us. So we require families to actively participate in the construction of their home. They participate in the construction of others' homes. They volunteer in our restores. They take financial classes. They join us on events. It is 100% a partnership. And when families are accepted into our program through qualifications, they begin that sweat equity hours, as we call, so that time and volunteer time that they're putting in, and we have an expectation of kind of 250 hours per adult applicant, and we want to see 25% of that already having happened before we would even consider looking at a home and doing a home offer. So there's definitely a proof of interest and willingness and partnership in being part of the program. Through those kind of sweat equity hours too, they contribute that time and effort, and they work alongside the volunteers and staff. So it begins to create that sense of pride, that ownership in what they're doing, and with Habitat and the community in general. And lastly, the ability to pay an affordable mortgage is huge. We talk about those that qualify with us being between 30 and 80% of the median income. For a family size of 2, 80% would be $70,000. So again, these are your teachers, your nurses, social workers, the community that really falls in line here. But we're not looking to have somebody purchase a home that they can't sustain and can't afford. So it's really important that we're looking at kind of, financial background, their stability, and there's financial education that is part of that really prepares them to develop a payment plan that fits their income and their situation, so that as they become homeowners, it is sustainable. They will have that mortgage for 30 years, and they can start to build that foundation that, really changes that cycle of renting, or that cycle of poverty, into something they can have for their future and for their families. You can, next slide, please. Yeah, change everyone here. These are two of our families from the past. Again, we have a Marine Corps veteran who was in insurance for many years, put a daughter in through college, and lost his wife, and then had his health decline. And really, I think at that point, thought that there wasn't ever an opportunity to be a homeowner again. When he first came to us with Habitat, he had some higher credit issues, and we work with consumer credit counseling services in Woodstock, and they assisted him in getting that under control. He came back a year later, applied, and we actually had a home that we were able to rehab, so we take foreclosures, and did so more prior to the market getting this condition. And with, again, 6 to 8 months, he was a homeowner again. But he had to put in the work and make those changes and work that out. It's, I think, if we all really take a minute and think about it too, you're not often too far from being in a situation and having a burden that comes up that can really change your financial situation and make homeownership difficult. Bernadette is a terrific example. She was going to McHenry County Community College for nursing when she first got into the program, and is currently working towards, and may have at this point finished, becoming a nurse practitioner and getting her a master's degree there. So she's worked for the McHenry County Health Department for many years, and I think because their wages are put out where the community can see. I looked them up recently because I was just curious. So she was making $31 an hour, give or take, and around $60-some thousand a year, which puts her into a position where she could, in theory, afford to have that 30% mortgage, conventionally on her own at this point. And that's what we want. We want people to get into positions where they have this home. She has 3 children that have all now gone into college nationally, and she's able to have that safe place where they can come back to, thrive, and make changes so that they are now in a position to not need the assistance any longer. Once a family really qualifies and is accepted into the program, they begin the process of showing that willingness, as I mentioned, with the financial classes as well. And then they begin working towards a home offer and the beginning of working on their home build. You can change to the next slide, please. Wanted to show here too, again, home build is something that we've kind of talked about in the home ownership program. This is just a short list, and our next slide will have some more information on them, but ways that you can be involved. Volunteering, of course, as we mentioned, on the build sites and at our restores, donating, and that can be items to the restores, your advocacy in general and speaking about this. Again, there's families, people that would qualify for a program that would make sense. There's people that are really passionate about the restore and what can be done there, shopping and donating, and just spreading the message to people and the support. the shopping there. And then organizing too, we have a lot of communities that, whether it be putting together a donation drive or just organizing, volunteer builds like Steve does. So if you want to switch to the next slide, that'd be great. This is a little bit more information on that. And in thinking about this too, talking about kind of at that point where they're ready for the home build, where a home offer has been made and it's one that makes sense for them, they begin with that simple groundbreaking where we truly just, break the ground, get involved with, building the foundation and seeing that come together. And then we bring in volunteers, and that's where it really gets exciting for us. That community of volunteers comes together, working side by side. You see the sweat, a lot of it, but a lot of dedication that pours into building the walls, raising the roofs. And we're looking at this opportunity as we begin in August, Volunteers for Our Next Builds, as a from the ground up. You'd have the opportunity to see from framing and coming in and hammering the nails in to put up the, skeleton of a frame there, to watching the roof go on, to seeing the walls come up inside, and creating that space where those dreams can really thrive. I have had the opportunity to see a few times. It's usually about 9 months when we do a new home build from start to dedication day for the families. And I could not come to a build site in 2 weeks. We're there 2 to 4 days with volunteers and a few staff members. And the progress that is made in that time is mind-blowing to me every time still, because it's amazing. And the majority of the people that are out there, we have core volunteers who are skilled or unskilled or become more skilled. But it's really crazy what a group of people who just get together with a little bit of, passion and intention can get done. We're on the slide now, too. I was trying to follow up with you there. So we talk about, too, kind of as every nail gets driven in, as every, paint stroke happens, too, that's the physical transformation, but you see the families there, too. So Steve talked about meeting family on one of our last home builds, and our families are out there doing their sweat equity hours, building their own home. You get to really kind of meet their story and see their transformation. I think anybody who's purchased a home here can relate to that feeling of closing on a house or going through that process, and it is stressful, and there are aches and pains. And you get to that point where you kind of feel like, we did it. This has officially happened. And for those who were totally at a point where they didn't know that this was possible, to see them go through that progress and that transition and get closer to the end and see it happen is exciting. And our volunteers really get a lot out of it. Again, you learn how to do things on building a home, quite possibly, but you also learn how much, it can make you feel when you are part of being in this organization and assisting them in making their dreams come true, really. Because they do invest that sweat equity and they build their future alongside the volunteers and staff, so we see that all the time. And the months pass too, as their hope and excitement grows, then the finally long-awaited dedication day arrives. It's filled with celebration. We all come together, and often and typically tears of gratitude, and that's from the volunteers and from the homeowners, because the volunteers are very, have so much grace and appreciation for being part of the process. I get asked a lot too, like if I still get emotional when it comes to dedication day, and the goosebumps come every time, because you get that opportunity to see somebody work through a partnership and get to that point. So it is well worth it. Restore volunteers come out too, and they may have met the families once at the Restore when they volunteered there a couple times, but they come out to see how, shopping at the store, how your impact volunteering in the store too can align with that. It's very cool. If you want to go to the last slide, that would be just fine. I'm sorry, yes, the next to last. You could go back one if you'd like. These are examples, too, of the type of people that you find. So what Friends of Habitat look like, too. We have Restore volunteers. We have groups from organizations who come out to the build sites and to the Restores. As we talked about too, or as I talked about on dedication day, we do have that moment where we hand over the keys and it becomes official with the families, but there is a ripple effect that's really set in motion that day. You see the stability that the families have and the empowerment from there. Their children have that place to study and grow. Their parents have a place to build their careers and work towards new things, and knowing that you have that safe haven to come back to every evening. It hits outside of just the family too. Safe and affordable housing is a foundation, we believe, for healthy neighborhoods and communities. So the impact goes way beyond, promotes that economic stability as they invest in kind of their homes and neighborhoods, and turns around properties that otherwise, weren't providing anything back into the community. So becoming that supportive community with Habitat, and we see the bonds that get put between families and volunteers, families and organizations. We've had connections made with families and church organizations that have come out and they didn't have a place to come like this and feel at home on Sundays, and that has changed their lives. And it's really awesome to see that kind of those relationships, they foster that sense of unity and togetherness. And I think we've learned a lot just in our time doing this, but together we can do more. And that is what, kind of putting your faith in action, putting your time, if you have that drive or that feeling or that interest in doing something that makes you feel a tingle of that giving back, you'll get that in any aspect of ways that you give back with us at Habitat. So from meeting those kind of requirements to being a part of the homeownership program, through that journey to dedication day, we see those families really achieve their dreams, and we're all a part of it, which is we're lucky to be a part of it, and is an amazing feeling. And breaking again that cycle of poverty and building those strong foundations for future generations. So that is a lot of what Habitat does, and we have the same information. You can go to that last slide there that does have our contact info. We're just here to, build up McHenry County, and in many different ways. We were part of the River Walk shops that they worked on. They're in McHenry by the River Walk because we had time and volunteers and went out and did that, because that is a part of building up McHenry County. So as Habitat, we're looking to do that in all ways that we can, and we'll be here with information too that you can grab from us afterwards if you're interested.
I've worked on Habitat homes, and it's really a great feeling if you haven't in the past done that. So we're about halfway through. I want everyone to get up, stretch out, and then, say hi to your neighbor, welcome them, Try to stay in the building, though. All right. So, again, I want to thank you for coming back after the last couple of weeks. It's encouraging to me that we're here to listen and learn. Today, we're going to talk on James chapter 3. And this is a kind of book that starts out with talking about taming our tongues. That's a sensitive issue to someone. So I'm going to kind of skip past that and get to the back end after we've done that. So anyways, again, did some research. And when you look at the human tongue, it weighs just 2.1 ounces. The average human body weighs 3,000 ounces. Aren't you glad you don't put that in the scale? Which means our tongues make up less than 0.07% of our total body weight. To kind of put that in perspective, it would be equivalent to comparing the population of McHenry County to the entire population of the United States. So you can see how small that is. Another thing about the tongue, besides speaking, it's responsible for taste. Did you know that your taste buds are entirely replaced every 10 days? I wish some of the damage my tongue has caused would only last 10 days. I don't know about you. So, I want to start by going over verses 5 and 6 of chapter 3. It says, likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. Those are kind of pretty humbling and things to consider. Many times the world tells us in situations where we want to speak but shouldn't, to bite your tongue. I'm sure everyone's heard that. The origin of the phrase can be traced back to at least Shakespeare in his play, Henry VI. It refers to the fact that if you bite your tongue, and you can try this right now, hold it between your teeth, it's impossible to speak. So, okay. Well, I can still hear you talking, so apparently you're not doing it. So anyways, so growing up, I loved watching The Honeymooners. And if you're familiar with the show, you know that Ralph's picture should be included next to the verses in 5 through 6, okay? Because Ralph didn't bite his tongue. So I'm going to show you a little clip of kind of how the world handles this. And the little background is, prior to this beginning of this clip, Ralph and Alice are arguing because Ralph's mother-in-law, Alice's mom, gets under Ralph's skin really quickly sometimes. And so Ralph says, your mom is going to get under my skin and say something within 3 minutes that are going to set me off. Okay. And so Ralph and Alice are going to see a show. It's a mystery. And Ralph has been avoiding talking to people all week about this because he didn't want to know the answer or the conclusion. And so Alice and him are sitting at the table, and his mother-in-law, Alice's mom, comes in. And if you want to show the clip. And I want you to watch Ralph's face through this.
With him first. But I couldn't because you were coming over to spend the evening. Anyway, it's a wonderful show. It's called Murder Strikes Out.
Oh, that. Oh, I had a neighbor, Mrs. Finley. She saw it. She didn't think much of it.
Really? It was supposed to be such a big hit. The paper said it's a very exciting mystery.
Oh, the papers, that's just a lot of publicity. All that to do about chills and suspense. And that nonsense about don't tell your friends the surprise ending. Well, it was no surprise to Mrs. Finley. She said she knew all the time that it wasn't the uncle who committed the murder. It was the husband.
You are a blabbermouth! A blabbermouth!
I often wonder if sometimes we're not like that in the situations. But, you know, Ralph tried to bite his tongue, probably counted to 10 multiple times. You could see his face was just trying to hold back. But in the end, he lost the battle to his tongue. You know, his outburst might have felt good at the time, but the spark from his tongue set the whole house on fire, destroyed relationships. So, again, we laugh at that, but as we view ourselves, I'm sure that we have situations, it may have felt good at the time, but it set the house on fire. Chapter 3 of James is broken into actually 2 parts, those not by James, but by the people that, put the book in the Bible. The first part in my Bible says taming the tongue. And I think of taming, I think of whips and, chairs like fighting a lion. And maybe that's useful for some of us. The second portion said 2 kinds of wisdom. And I think the way James wrote this letter, it was really in a way that says, you know what? From personal experience, he knew that he had mocked Jesus. There's parts of the Bible where he didn't believe Jesus was Jesus, And so him and his brothers mocked him. Then he got the wisdom. And when you read again the beginning of James, he talks about being a slave and servant of his brother Jesus. So he got the wisdom from that, and I think that's why he structures this letter like that. Warns of the tongue and then shows you the way to tame it. James 13 through 18 is the actual verse I'm going to focus on. And let's read this all out loud. I think it's good to read this. Who among you is wise and understanding? By his good conduct he should show that his works are done in the gentleness that comes from wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your heart, don't boast and deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there is disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peace-loving, gentle, compliant, full of mercy, good fruits, unwavering, without pretense, and fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who cultivate this. So 2 weeks ago, the message was on trials, about how the joy, James writes, of that we should have in trials that come from the actual endurance of surviving and working your way through trials. I think endurance in this sense, in that verse, can be interchanged with wisdom. Because in verse 5 of chapter 1, James says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it'll be given to you. So you couple this with this verse, and you say, okay, the wisdom comes from God. Then, later on in chapter 1 or chapter 2, he talks about people of faith. We talked about putting faith into action last week. And he mentions Rahab. And Sally gave a little bit of background on Rahab, but I want to read you what Rahab's story was. And just a little background before I get to the point that I want to read is that two spies from the Jewish nation came in, and the king of Jericho was searching for them and wanting them to be turned over, to be killed. So she could have easily turned them over, been a hero, maybe got some money from it. But she says that when she heard the stories of the Jewish God, and in her words, talking about the people of Jericho, our hearts melted in fear. Okay, so she had fear. And I want to read the verse and get to the point I'm trying to make is, now please, she's talking to the Jewish spy, now please swear to me by the Lord that you will also show kindness to my father's family, because I showed kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father, mother, brothers, sisters, and all who belong to them, and save us from death. So when you look at Rahab, before agreeing not to report the spies to the king of Jericho, she negotiated a deal that would save her family. I don't think you would argue that Rahab used great wisdom in that situation. In the trials we go through, we have a choice between where we seek wisdom, from the world or from above, meaning God. As I was preparing this message, I started looking back at life and the wisdom I gained. I realized that often I confused intelligence with wisdom. I also thought you only get wisdom from getting old or age. I'm not convinced now that start is either fully correct, is not fully correct. So let's start with my premise that intelligence equals wisdom. And I think intelligence, I don't want to say like book smart, there is knowledge that you can gain from not going to school. So look at it as knowledge. I think I can dispel that theory by pointing to the show The Big Bang Theory. If you do any search of YouTubes, you will find hours of Sheldon saying things that are logically and intelligent, but he didn't get the outcome he expected. Why? Because he lacked wisdom. They may be funny to watch, but if I ask for a raise of hands, everyone here has had at least one Sheldon moment in their life, right? I have multiple. I'm going to give you an example of that. A few weeks into my job at Baxter, I was the new guy. The ink on my diploma had just barely dried. I didn't know what I didn't know. I was sitting in a shared area, and my boss was having a discussion with a few other people about a problem that they were having, my group was having. It was something that I immediately knew I had the answer for, and I just blurted it out. The room got quiet. You know, like those things when the record goes and stops? That was that moment. You know, I was expecting high fives and fist bumps, but boy, I was wrong. Instead of smiles, I got frowns and knitted eyebrows. My boss pulled me aside, away from the others, got really close and said to me, "You aren't paid to think." That was 39 years ago, and I can remember like it just happened. The impact of those words, "you aren't paid to think," has had a big impact on my career that really can't be measured. But I'll save that for another sermon if you want to get the whole story behind that. I got an earful of what an untamed tongue could dish out from my boss. Like James, it was a spark that lit a fuse that resulted in me making significant life changes. But I also played a role in this. What I said was true and correct, but my timing was off. I didn't understand the power structure or the dynamics at work. I had the intelligence, maybe it would be say knowledge, but I lacked the experience. I didn't know the protocol. But I learned very quickly, and I got wiser that day. Another misconception I had about wisdom is that came with age or experience. Here's a video. I think it's easy for me to try to explain it, but I think this video really puts that sometimes getting older doesn't actually equate with wisdom. So you want to roll the...
What do you think of my spread, huh? Can you believe it? They used to test H-bombs on this beautiful piece of property.
Oh, Alan, I miss you so much.
Ellen.
Eddie, don't you worry about radiation?
All I know, Clark, is that my teeth have never been whiter and my garden is spitting out 50-pound tomatoes.
I know this is an extreme example, but I think of each of us has a cousin Eddie in our lives, don't we? And I'm looking at my wife, and she's staring at me, so I don't know what that means. Those are the ones in the family that are a little unusual. They say or do something like Eddie here. In the next scene, he's cooking meat on one of the stones because the radiation's still radiating out of that. Eddie's experiences, if you know his story, really didn't make him wise. It really made him a wise guy. Cousin on the other side, I do think age can make us wise, but being wise is not also equal to having wisdom. I want to unpack this a little bit. I don't know about you, but I get bombarded every day with emails, spam mail, with these incredible offers that will take years off my life, help me look better, lose weight, grow my hair back, on and on. I've become wise to these frauds because I've encountered them over and over again. Maybe I've read some articles on them, warnings and whatnot, and I'm alerted to them. But what if somebody came to my door with a similar type of offer, and something I wasn't alerted to or had experience with? Would I also be wise with these offers? Would I be able to know from what I learned in these emails and really transfer it to the person at the door? Was I able to apply lessons I learned in one situation to a different situation? And I think that's what wisdom is applying what you learn from one situation and applying it to multiple areas of your life. In the same sense, experience doesn't always end in wisdom. An example of this is a gambler who goes to Vegas every year with the hope of beating the house. He has read books, has a new strategy every year, but every year he comes home broke. Year after year, he repeats the process with the same results. He knows the house has the advantage, and his past experiences should tell him that he will lose, but he keeps doing it. I think sometimes when you couple knowledge with experience, it doesn't lead to wisdom. It may lead to an addiction. The conclusion I came when examining my life about wisdom was that I didn't exist on an island. We all don't exist on an island. That along with intelligence, knowledge, and experience, I also needed input from things or people outside of myself to get the wisdom. And this is the thrust of what James is writing in verses 13 through 18. The input of wisdom, James claims, comes from one of two places, either earth, the world, or from above. This outside myself wisdom really serves to calibrate my knowledge and experiences in one of two ways, either a worldly way or a heavenly way. It might really be hard to believe that when I was younger, I had a full head of blonde hair. You're supposed to laugh. Growing up in the late 70s and 80s, it was feathered perfectly, kept in place by massive amounts of ozone-depleting hairspray. Wind didn't have any effect on it. In my mid-20s, my hair started to thin. And I got some subtle and not so subtle hints from my wife at the time that she preferred me with a full head of hair, like before. I struggled this, wondering why it mattered. I worked hard to be the best husband I could be, going to seminars, reading books, etc., but none of it made a difference. The comments never stopped. They continued to go. Thinking that pleasing my wife was a way to improve our marriage, happy wife, happy life, I broke down and made an appointment to go in and review my options. They told me I would look great with one of their hair pieces. They showed me before and after pictures of other men that had gone through the process. Pictures of them in pools with big smiles on their face, their wives being attentive and more attractive. They explained how it helped them in their careers. It was a win-win-win-win-win situation. While I was receiving the earthly wisdom, being peddled by the saleswoman, in the back of my head I heard God whisper, "I love you for who you are." But the more the salesperson talked, the less I could hear God's voice. Finally, I signed a contract. In a month, I would be a new man, loved by my wife, kids happy, dogs wagging their tails when I got home. It wouldn't be long until I had that corner office at work. As you can see, I don't have Fabio's golden flowing hair. So that's kind of a hint that it didn't work out as I planned. For the first few weeks, my marriage did appear to improve. But after the new wore off, the same patterns came back, though the dogs still wagged their tails when I got home. On the outside, I looked terrific, but on the inside, I was being torn apart. So much so that after about 6 weeks, I couldn't function. I was in an unwinnable situation. On one hand, my wife was saying how great I looked, so continuing on would be at the expense of my peace. If I keep it on, happy wife, but it wasn't such a happy life. If I went back to as I was before, I would have peace, but there would be no peace in my marriage. So as the common wisdom would say, unhappy wife, unhappy life. Like all issues, it eventually worked out. My issue got worked out by a 4-day stint in the hospital on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Evaluating my decision, happy wife, I acted immaturely. I opted for the easier of two paths. It wasn't my hair, it was the marriage. I was enamored by all the shiny surface things that mattered to this world. I ignored the things that mattered to God. Last week, I gave the examples of my faith in action is displayed by the fruit I bear. Specifically, I gave you the example of the apple tree. I was producing immature fruit, immature apples. If you ever bit into an immature apple, they're very bitter and tough. It is not a pleasant experience. It still has nourishment, though, but the apple isn't what God intended it to be. While I was going through all of this, there really was no flavor in my life. It was like things were in monochromatic black and white. I was living, but I wasn't alive. I was so withdrawn that I hardly spoke. My tongue wasn't speaking badly, but everything tasted bland. I did gain wisdom, but I found out over the next 10 years that wisdom was a road that had no end. Each experience moved me further down the road, got me wiser, until I lost sight of where I came from and began to focus on where God wanted me or was leading to me. I was thought about ending it here, but that would only be half the story. James explains that getting wisdom from above produces good fruit. In October of 2021, I was leading the last board meeting of my tenure as the chairman of the board of directors. Dave was sharing a story and the decision he made to turn down the call he had gotten from the church in Carlsbad, California. He explained that the Lutheran Church was not graduating enough students from their seminaries to fill all the open pastor positions. Dave added that things were only going to get worse due to the aging and retirement of current pastors. The future really didn't look bright, and there was really no answer to that. Then, like Dave is known to do, he threw a curveball. This might be a knuckleball, curveball mix, but he said that he wanted to raise up 12 workers from the FOF body. When he said that, I began to feel a weak but constant vibration in my body. My cell phone was on the table in front of me, so that wasn't it. He went on to outline the SMP program and the SMP and Deaconesses programs that are offered by Concordia in St. Louis. I felt the vibration increase. As he went into more and more detail, my body increased in vibration. I looked around, and thankfully no one was looking at me, because I don't know if I was physically vibrating. When Dave finished, my whole body was vibrating. The vibration, though, was in resonance with the Holy Spirit. For that brief moment, it was like I was hitting the key, the C key on a piano, and God was holding a tuning fork that was perfectly aligned with that C note. At the break, I caught Dave and I told him I was in. As I started telling my friends and family that when I retired I was going to be a pastor, the first response for some was a smile or chuckle. For others, it was a gut-busting belly laugh. And some of them are still laughing. No matter how they responded, I could tell that they wondered why I would choose to take on full-time ministry at my age, rather than kicking back and enjoying retirement and enjoying the fruit of my 40 years of labor. When I took a step back and looked at things from their perspective, I could see why they may have reacted in that way. What may have seemed strange from their perspective was anything but. I had aligned my knowledge with my experience and added the wisdom from above, which resulted in an unexpected outcome to them, but I argue an expected outcome in heaven. 5 years ago, I would have never said in my wildest dreams that I would be standing up here, sharing my stories, sharing some of the wisdom that I obtained, but it was a life-altering effect. I now know what Peter meant in John 6:68 through 69. Background behind this is many of the disciples of Jesus, the followers, were leaving because he gave this outrageous claim that to have eternal life, you had to physically eat flesh and drink blood. So as he's watching, and it said many, so you know many is probably a lot. He turned to his 12 disciples and asked, You do not want to leave too, do you? Jesus asked the 12, because they didn't. And then Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe and to know that you're the Holy One of God. And I started looking at it as like, now after this, who else should I go for wisdom? Except from the one above. Before I call Garrett and his band up, I want to close this out with one small piece of information that I haven't given you yet. And you may laugh, and you're wondering what this bag is. It has to do with Sour Patch Kids. I see the kids are all excited. The way I painted my last story, to put it in biking terms, would be like riding downhill with the sun and wind at my back on a nice paved road with no potholes. But that really would be misrepresenting the reality. Life isn't like this. If you've ever eaten one of these Sour Patch Kids, I don't know if I can open this. There we go. Ever eaten one of these little tiny Sour Patch Kids, you know that as it sits on your tongue, and I'm not going to do this because I probably won't be able to speak. Maybe that's what we should do, put a Sour Patch Kid and it'll help us preventing us from talking. It's very sour. And you can see this reflected in my face or your face, and sometimes maybe your words, like, or you're going like that. But if you hang on to, continue letting it on your tongue, it gets sweet. The sour turns into sweet. And again, this could be reflected in your face and sometimes in the My journey is not all downhill with the wind and sun at my back. It's like eating a Sour Patch Kid. I throw a piece in my mouth, persevere through the sourness, knowing that the sweet will come. Once finished, I pop another in my mouth and repeat the process. Forrest Gump said, life is like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get until you bite into them. Since I'm not a big chocolate fan, I prefer the soft gummy candy. I think we as followers of Christ know that life is like a Sour Patch Kid. Often we have to persevere through the sourness of the world's wisdom to get to the sweetness of the wisdom from above. I misspoke last week that putting our faith in action will lead to a fulfilling life. I realize now that God doesn't want us to have a fulfilling life. He wants us to have an abundant life. And because we are by nature sinners, our immaturity will bring sourness. But if we're patient, He will turn that sourness into sweetness. For those who have made it through the sour part and are enjoying the sweetness, I thank God for you. I know that some of you right now are tasting some of the sourness of life right now. I pray for you to build the endurance that will eventually lead to the sweetness. It might not be what the world calls sweet, but when we allow His wisdom, the wisdom from above, to guide our choices, the sourness will be turned eventually into sweet fruit. There is one last group that is hearing this and is hesitant. You're wondering if I could trust God, if I could trust God's wisdom to guide my life. You might be thinking that the world's wisdom may not be working out for you, but you're afraid that choosing God's wisdom might turn out worse. I can give you an answer to that. I can't give you an answer to that, but if you're tired of swallowing the Sour Patch Kid before you get to the sweet part, all you have to do is tell God that you need Him to lead your life. He can get you past the sourness that you have experienced and maybe are experiencing. Surrendering your life to Him is the only way to eat the fruit that gives everlasting light. You can do that today. Turn your life over to Him, and He will not only have the wisdom you need to build the endurance through the trials, He will walk in front of you to show you the way. I'm going to bow in prayer. Dear Lord, the tongue only speaks what is in my heart. James said that earthly wisdom tears down, but your wisdom lifts up. Lord, I pray that you change my heart. Fill my heart with your wisdom. Move the world out and fill it so the world can't get back in. I pray for everyone here, everyone listening online, that wherever they are, that you make their presence vividly known to them. I pray that as we leave today, that we leave and strive for a life that you offer of abundance. In your name we pray. Amen. You wherever you're at, whether you're in the sweet or the sour parts of life. You have life. Just ask. Hope to see you next week, and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Body down, and there ain't no body down. Look way down the river, what do you think I see? I see a band of angels, and they're coming after me. There ain't no grave that can hold my body down. Look down yonder, Gabriel, put your feet on the land and see. Don't you blow that trumpet till you hear from me. There ain't no grave that can hold my body down. There ain't no grave that can hold my body down. Meet me in the middle of the air. If these wings should fail me, I'll meet you anywhere. There ain't no grave that can hold my body down. There ain't no grave that can hold my body down. Meet me down the river road. Mama, you know that I'll be there when I check in my load. There ain't no grave that can hold my body down. There ain't no grave that can hold my body down. That can hold my body down.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, guys. I love that song.
That's a great song, and they did such a good job. Like that little riff at the end with all the instruments going off.
I could listen to the play all day.
It. I know it's.
That's a Johnny Cash song.
I know, yeah. And he did a really good job.
Did it, and
it sounds.
Did Nine Inch Nails?
I have no idea.
No, that's Hurt.
I don't know.
Like Johnny Cash's song. Okay, no, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. It's both parts soothing and like energetic at the same time. It's very cool. So very interesting. I've never experienced that before in a worship set. It's very neat. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, so. I liked it a lot. I'm looking at people like, why aren't you like going crazy? Because I'm like going crazy back
I
here.
know. We both were. I mean,
I
there's
know.
a handful, but that's good.
It's nice being in the back where like nobody can see
Yeah,
you and you
can
can
just
like do
go.
your thing
Yep.
and like
Not worry
nobody's
about
watching.
judgment. But I don't think anyone would judge anyways, so make sure I'm on. So,
Go ahead.
trying to form words. I like how he said about wisdom and how taking the different facets of our lives, but I think what he touched on the best was you can't find wisdom without God.
Yeah.
You can't find true wisdom without God. And that's taking your human element out of it and combining it with God, right? But you can't find wisdom without the Lord, period.
Yeah.
You just can't. And I liked how he added that, because you may have your own wisdom, but it's not true wisdom unless the Lord is there.
Oh, so many people like just find the truth within you. Like, that's the most ridiculous advice
Your
ever.
truth, that phrase makes me cringe, because there's no such thing. It's what is
Your truth. Your truth will lead you astray every time.
100%.
Yes.
Without a doubt. So.
Dave just walked by.
We talked about this a little bit in the booth, but when Dave isn't preaching,
Yeah.
he's like somewhere in the crowd. It's not, usually he sits up front when he preaches with, that way we can get
he
easy
always
access
does.
to the stage. But when he's not, he is in the middle of the crowd somewhere. It's almost like playing Where's Waldo? Where's Dave? Where's Dave today?
Very intentional.
Yeah, very intentional.
Very intentional.
Of
Like
course.
he's going to check out the acoustics on this side of the room and what does the lighting look like. His mind never stops.
Always buzzing.
And it's interesting coming when he's not on because, like, is he making Todd nervous? I mean,
I almost
don't
think
know.
because
So
Dave.
Sally did the 9 o'clock service, like the Bible study. She did phenomenal. But she came up to me, and I got here before Dave did because we drove separately. Because
Why not?
we might have 5 cars here today. I don't know. It's ridiculous. My family's ridiculous that way. But Sally came up, and she's like, "Oh, Dave's not here," and I'm like, "No, he's not," knowing that he's coming, and I didn't want to make her nervous, and I didn't know if like his presence would make her nervous or make her calm down.
So if I was in their shoes, Dave, when he's not on stage, he always has a smile when he's listening.
Okay.
Like I'm listening to you. I'm hearing what you're saying. You're doing a good job.
Okay.
I would look for him every time. If I was up on stage,
Interesting, okay.
I would look for his face because it's very soothing to me because he's got that. I just watched him do it when Todd was speaking. The whole time, just a little smile on his face, like, I am hearing you, and you're doing a good job.
Okay.
So I understand what you're saying, though.
He is the like most supportive,
Big
most
time.
encouraging, and
Always.
there's times that like I will like look at him like, did I say too much? Or like Facebook, did I just post too much? And you're like, Tino, what are you doing? Because I tend to be more
out there.
What you see is what you get.
That's
really,
fine.
and
That's
you
not a
see
bad
lot.
thing. Not a bad thing at all. So the first part of his message, the biting your tongue, I try to do that because I know what outbursts can do.
We were totally doing that back here. We're going to do the post-game show,
yeah,
the biting your tongue.
I can do it.
That makes for good listening stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But, the it's more of a saying, right? You bite your tongue so you don't make outbursts. You think before you speak. That's what my parents have always drilled in my head. You think before you speak.
I have written so many responses to people, whether email or Facebook post, whatever, and have it all written out, and it's long and it's eloquent, and like just backspace it all out.
Yep,
you don't
because
need to send
you
this.
don't need to say it.
This is not building up our relationship.
Exactly,
This
it's
is
just going to
not-
tear
this
it down.
Yeah.
Because I know what outbursts can do.
Yeah.
To relationships, to your reputation. I just know. So I try very hard. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Not easy at all.
No.
But that's something that especially because people know me as a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I made that clear and upfront that I am a Christian. I believe in God and I follow God. And if I outburst in a way that's not Christianly, it reflects poorly on not just me, but the entirety of Christ's followers. And I try very hard to be that leader as much as I can. But it's not easy, and I do fall
they
short.
say, God's light, make sure that it shines through you. Make sure you're a good witness, and all that kind of stuff. Like, you are a witness whether you want to be or not. You just are, period.
Right, exactly. And there's never an off day.
Yeah.
You always are a representative of the journey with Christ.
Yep.
And you have to make sure you reflect that.
Yep.
Where I struggle with this the most, and I'm a very angry driver. I have road rage like no tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't honk my horn because I just scream at my windshield. No one can hear me, I hope.
Yeah,
but
I've done that a few times.
I need to realize that that's something I need to work on. It's been
You know what really changes road rage? When you have kids and they're going through driver's training and you're like, I can't be crazy anymore because they're going to act like me.
Yeah,
and now it tempers everything.
Yeah, yep, that's a good point. You got to remember there's always someone looking up to you, right? Always going to follow your lead. So I like that he touched on that and how you're representing Christ. You're representing Christ, so make sure your outburst. It's not easy, just like that clip. And that dude looks like he was about to have a heart attack. It's not easy, and sometimes you slip up, but you try your hardest not to.
Yeah.
Yep,
All right, what do we have going on the rest of the week or month or whatever?
We have softball tomorrow, I believe.
We have softball?
Uh-huh. Monday night. There's 2 teams, so there's 2 games. I don't know the time, so show up at 6:30. You'll find them.
Okay. What number is today? Is today the 9th, 10th?
Today,
like that? So
today is the 9th, yes.
Fiesta Days is going on this week.
Yep. Next 2 weeks, I believe, is Fiesta Days. Okay. We have a Fiesta Day meetup next Sunday, it looks like. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
16th Sunday?
It says Sunday.
Oh, see, I can't read that.
So it's a week from today. I don't know. What does it say?
And then in a couple weeks is Bible Boot Camp.
Yep. We're talking.
So that the registration is open. Sign your kids up for Bible
make
Boot
sure,
Camp.
please sign your kids up too. That way, all the leaders know who's all going to be showing up.
We got a Bunko night coming up in
Bunko night at the end of the month on the 28th, and looks like a suicide prevention training on the 20th and the 21st. So we'll touch on those as we get closer. But
the
just a
suicide
heads
prevention kind of made me think of it. I was in Woodstock Square a few weeks ago, and I stopped at this shop. It's called Warp Corp. And
Wahana?
Warp, W-A-R-P, Warp
gotcha.
Corp.
Okay.
It's a non-profit, and they kind of reach out to people in like Woodstock area that have like drug problems, I guess. But they also have a storefront that helps support their nonprofit, and I love their coffee. Their hazelnut coffee is phenomenal. So I was in there one Saturday, and there was a bunch of people sitting at a table saying, "Hey, we do the Narcon training. Do you want some Narcon?" And I'm like, "Oh, actually, my church just did this." And they're like, "What church?" I said, "Fellowship of Faith." They're like, that was us. They were there. So it was really
sweet.
cool.
Okay.
It was really cool. We have these connections with.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately that the opioid epidemic is so strong right now, and being able to step up and know what to do in a situation that could be.
It's cool that we're offering and people are stepping up to take the training for Narcon or suicide prevention.
Exactly. I'm loving that word. Well, these are tough topics. These are topics that churches would not touch with a 10-foot pole. So I'm very happy that FOF is taking that step, because everyone should know, and it should be offered for everybody who's struggling with whatever. We want to know the doors are open, and we accept you, and we love you, and we welcome you to our community. So we'll touch on that more as we get information, but put it on your calendars for the 16th, which is next Sunday, for a Fiesta Day meetup. We'll get the details and talk to you next week about
it's all on our website.
And all on the website, too.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked it out, you should, because it's great. That's where I got all the information on today, because I wasn't here last week, so on the website.
All right. I think that's a wrap.
I think so. Thank you for tuning in today.
Hope you have a great week.
Next week, I believe, is questions you never thought you could ask in church.
Probably.
I believe that's our annual series coming up for the summer. So bring some questions, and there'll be a number popped up on the screen, and text them in, and Dave will answer as many as he can. So
next week, bring your friends.
Yeah, bring your friends.
We love questions.
Yep, this is, honestly, if you're new to your walk with Christ, this is the perfect Sundays to come, because you can ask anything. Nothing's off limits, and Dave he does a wonderful job answering things, and if he can't, he will turn you towards an answer somewhere else.
Yeah.
So tune in.
All right. Have a great week, guys. We'll see you next
Take care.
Sunday.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.